Hello everybody. In today's video we are going to talk briefly about a very important figure, a very important spiritual guide, prophet that we find within the Islamic theology, Islamic mysticism, and also it is said that he is mentioned in the Quran regarding the prophet Musa. I'm making reference to the figure, to the prophet, some call him the figure of Al-Khadir. Al-Khadir, it is connected, or it's been said that in fact there are many opinions about who is Al-Khadir. Al-Khadir, some people say, according to different texts, that he was a prophet, that he was actually a human being that lived at a certain point in history. Later on he became a kind of spiritual guide, spiritual entity, that he is alive during all generations, at all times, and he can appear to very pious people, very holy people, and he can reveal certain knowledge from God that will help these people, these very holy servants of God, to attain higher levels of revelation, of wisdom, and to perfect and keep them following the path towards God. Indeed, it is said that he is the man, the person, the servant of God that is mentioned in the Quran in chapter 18, the verses 65 up to 82. There is a narration in which the prophet Moses, he had this encounter with a man that the Quran mentions. He received certain knowledge from God, and Moses accompanied this man in a journey, and certain things happened that the prophet Moses did not understand, understood what was happening, and was questioning this man all the time. And at the end he received some revelation and explanation about these strange things that were happening. You guys can take a look later on, Quran 18, 65 to 82. And according to ulama, according to the scholars, they agree that this mysterious man was the Al-Khadir. Al-Khadir, that within the Islamic mysticism, Sufism, Sufis indeed aspire to become the disciples of the Al-Khadir. This is the highest level of achievement for a mystic, for a very pious person, to have the merit of receive the visit of Al-Khadir and receive instruction from him. We know that many important figures, very important sheikhs and imams throughout history, both within the Sunni tradition and the Shia tradition, make reference to the Al-Khadir and have claimed to receive the visit of Al-Khadir. For example, Sheikh Al-Khadir Al-Jilani, Al-Nawawi, and many others, very important sheikhs, have claimed to have received the visit and have received instructions from Al-Khadir. Even we find many mentions of Al-Khadir within the tradition, the Sunnah of the Prophet, the Hadith. The Hadith mentions about Al-Khadir. Also many great scholars like At-Tabari and many others talk about him, and some describe about who was really Al-Khadir, because there's a lot of mystery connected to this spiritual entity. As I mentioned before, some claim that he was actually a human being that lived in certain time in history, but later on he drank from the wealth of eternal life, and after drinking this kind of water, he was able to live forever up to this very day. And he appears to very holy people who have purified themselves, purified their mind, their hearts, and follow the path of tasawwuf. And he reveals to them certain kind of knowledge and help them to attain and to be more close to God. We have also great important sheikhs from the past, like Sheikh Al-Akbar Muhyiddin ibn Arabi Al-Andalusi, who claim to have received also the visit of Al-Khadir. For example, I will mention briefly three instances in which Ibn Arabi tells he received the visit or had the merit of encounter the Al-Khadir in his life. There is one story that one time in Ibn Arabi tells us that he had a disagreement with his professor, his teacher, his sheikh, Sheikh Abdul Hassan, and they were debating something about Islamic theology, and Ibn Arabi had disagreement with his master. That night, during a dream, Ibn Arabi saw the figure of this man who was very young, handsome, but with a white beard. This is the description of Al-Khadir. And he appeared to him and told him, the disagreement that you had with your sheikh, you should know that he is right and you are wrong. After this kind of vision, this dream, Ibn Arabi woke up in the middle of the night, went to the house of his master, apologized to him, and his master was not surprised because his master, Abdul Hassan, told him that he, through meditation, had appealed to Al-Khadir to appear to him and correct him. This is a very, very interesting narration, and Ibn Arabi tells us, he wrote in his books, that after this he never dared to disagree with his teacher again. There is another important narration in which Ibn Arabi tells us that during a trip to Tunisia, he was staying on the ship that took him to this country in North Africa, and one night he couldn't sleep. He was walking on the deck of the ship, and suddenly he saw a man that was coming towards him, walking on the water. This man came to him, stand next to the border of the ship, and had this conversation with Ibn Arabi. We don't know what they spoke about. After that, the man turned away and walked away, and in 3 steps he suddenly vanished. He disappeared. The next morning, Ibn Arabi was walking through the streets of Tunisia, and suddenly an old man, an old sheikh, an old master came to him and told him, and asked him actually, how was your encounter with Al-Khadir last night? So we find that within the Islamic mysticism and Islamic understanding, the figure of Al-Khadir is indeed very important, and it seems that certain pious men have this kind of knowledge and privilege of having received the visit of Al-Khadir. There's another story that I will mention briefly, also to happen to Ibn Arabi. He was in a masjid, in a mosque in Andalusia, what is today in Spain, and Ibn Arabi was giving a talk about the creative power of the mind through meditation, in which he claimed that a human being who is able to perfect and purify his mind and his heart through meditation, through his mind and the power of meditation, he is able to have certain influence or be able to make miracles, if we're gonna call them like miracles of this way, these kind of changes in reality happen. People were disagreeing with him. They did not agree with Ibn Arabi about these holy people who are able to have such influence through meditation. And suddenly there was a man that came inside the mosque. He took his prayer mat and started to pray. No one recognized him. They just thought he was a normal person. But Ibn Arabi, who was such a great spiritual master, he recognized this man immediately. He knew he was Al-Khadir. Suddenly this man was praying, and Ibn Arabi tells us in his books that the man, where he was praying, suddenly he rose from the floor 16 feet high and conducted his prayer on the air. Everybody inside the mosque was like shocked. Everybody was just looking at this. They didn't know what's happening, and they were just watching this amazing phenomenon. After this man finished his prayer, slowly came down back to the floor, rolled up his prayer mat and left the masjid, the mosque. And after this, no one dared to disagree again with Ibn Arabi regarding the ability of the creative powers of the human mind. And these are just briefly 3 instances of the appearance of Al-Khadir, this spiritual guide in the life of very holy people. Throughout history, there are many sheikhs and many examples of Al-Khadir. It is said that Al-Khadir, as I mentioned before, is alive at all times and it can appear in many places at the same time. It is very interesting that we find within the Jewish mysticism a similar equivalent to the figure of Al-Khadir. I'm talking about the figure of the Prophet Elijah. The Prophet Elijah, it is said also that he is alive at all times and he can appear at all places at the same time. He's a spiritual guide also that appears to very holy people, very holy persons, and he instructs them in the secrets of heaven and guides them towards a more closeness to God. And indeed, there is also within the Islamic tradition, there is a certain books and famous sheikhs who wrote and said that Al-Khadir and the Prophet Elijah, once a year, they meet each other during the month of Ramadan, and they meet in Jerusalem, and they study together. I don't know what kind of conversation they have, but they have this encounter. And it's very interesting, this connection that we find within both spiritual or mystic paths in both monotheistic religions. So we find that this mysterious entity, some even call him an angel, a prophet, a spiritual guide. There are many descriptions about who Al-Khadir is. And within the Islamic tradition, both within the Islamic mystical path and within the Sunnah in general, we find many instances of the appearance of the figure of Al-Khadir. For example, there are many hadiths by Ibn Hanbal, Al-Bukhari and many others that narrate and tells us that Al-Khadir was also appeared to the Prophet Muhammad, that he was present at the funeral of the Prophet. He even appeared to Ali, his sons Hassan and Hussein. In many instances, narrations tells about these encounters with Al-Khadir, and is a very holy entity that is able to communicate certain knowledge, as is stated in the Quran, as I mentioned before, knowledge received from God, and then he reveals this kind of knowledge to certain prophets, like to the Prophet Moses, and many other holy servants of God. Thank you so much for your attention, for being with me in today's video. In following videos, we will continue with our topics and discussion regarding the history of Islam and many other topics of history in general, philosophy, and even the analysis according to following the academic way of the study of Islamic mysticism and many other mystics within the 3 monotheistic religions. Thank you so much for your attention, and we'll see each other in the next video.